Very pale. All right, so you can see here, very much like a sort of, I guess, a golden sort of, not quite light straw, but you can sort of see there's a bit of color to that. So hey guys, welcome back to McIntyre's Malt. My name is Wade McIntyre, and today I wanted to do the first in a series of videos that I would call virgin tastings. This is for people who've never tried this specific malt whiskey that I'm going to try, and you get to see in real time what the experience is. Do I love it? Do I hate it? What are the smells? What are the tastes? You know, what I think, and a little bit about the whiskey itself. So I thought it might be interesting to do, because as you can see on my shelf here, there's some of the whiskeys that I've already tried, and I'll do some videos on those whiskeys later on as just normal tasting videos. But for this one, I thought it would be cool, and as I get new bottles and experience new flavors, to try those ones and film the reactions on camera. What do I think of them? So that's what we're here for today. And I have a few new bottles that I'm excited about, so I thought today what might be cool is to jump in and try today's virgin tasting of the Port Charlotte 10 heavily peated. So if you're like me, big Islay fan, really enjoy the smoky whiskeys and the whiskeys that have that a heavier flavor, a bit of a oomph, you know, some kick to them, a bit of a smack in the face, if you will. So I'm excited about this one. I've heard very good things as I look online and dive into the whiskey groups and channels that I'm interested in. This one has come up as one that has been very highly rated, and a lot of people who are self-proclaimed Pete heads seem to suggest and recommend this one. So I've tried some Lafroigs and Lagavulins, and to an extent, you know, extension of that, perhaps some Talisker 10, and I really want to get into obviously some Ardbegs as well. And so we're going to jump into this one today. Okay, so the Port Charlotte heavily peated Islay single malt 10-year-old. So let's open this up and give you guys a look, and we'll explain what I'm experiencing as we go through it. It's a very, very nice bottle too, very different. So it's Palate that makes the Port Charlotte, and as you can see, it's a very, very different bottle to the typical, what I would call typical, perhaps, in the sense of maybe a Glenmorangie type bottle. As you can see, it's very much a standard kind of shape, labeling, pretty common. A lot of bottles are like this. So I kind of like what the Port Charlotte is doing in terms of separating themselves, differentiating themselves with a really interesting bottle. So you can see this, it's a very, very dark bottle. It's a really rich kind of green glass. You kind of can't see it on the camera, but very hard to see the whiskey inside, right? You don't get a good sense of the color of the whiskey itself. But we've got on here, I'll give you a bit of context on this one. So it's saying it's the signature Port Charlotte, the 10-year-old. So it's conceived, distilled, matured, and bottled at Bruichladdich distilleries, Isle of Islay, product of Scotland. So this one is, I don't know if it's coloured or non-chill filtered, but it's 50% ABV, so that would definitely to me suggest that it hasn't been chill filtered. That's a bit of a higher concentration than maybe a standard, that minimum offering of a 40% that most distilleries, well, that's the threshold to be classed as whiskey legally. All right, so let's open it up and see what we think. Okay, taking off the wrapper here so you can see brand new fresh bottle, hasn't been opened. It's a good sound, isn't it? Right away, very heavy peat smell, sort of similar. I only have a certain range on my palate that I've experienced, but very much that typical of a peated whiskey like a Lafroig or an Ardbeg or a Lagavulin. Very much that saltiness, that peat smoke, maritime kind of smells, but a little bit of a more of a sweetness if I'm picking up on this one particularly. So let's have a pour. I'll grab a glass and let's see. Very pale. All right, so you can see here, very much like a sort of, I guess, a golden sort of, not quite light straw, but you can sort of see there's a bit of color to that. So looks like for a 10-year-old that seems sort of reasonable, like a realistic kind of color that I definitely would say this hasn't been colored if I'm looking at that one. All right. Let's put that back here. The cork back in. Really big, wide open bottle too. Interesting. The pour on that. All right. Let's see. Very sweet. Very much the smokiness is the main element I'm picking up on, the peat. Much of that saltiness, that sort of maritime, the sea kind of ocean smells. Maltiness. There's a nice. It has a very balanced smell. Like some of the others, the smoke hits you really hard, and it's almost the only scent. It kind of takes away from the other scents that are in the whiskey. And I like to try, even though this is a 50% ABV, I like to try the whiskey as is, and then potentially add water after, just to not to sort of bring the flavor, the ABV down. I like it as a way of almost opening up. Certain times when you add that water, you start to get more of the flavors expose themselves, more of the scents expose themselves. So it's a good contrast to try the two with and without the water. But for now, this one, I like to start without the water to get a real sense of what the whiskey is, as is out of the bottle. It's a very pleasant smell on the nose. It's really enjoyable. It's inviting. As I say, it's really nice balance. Just everything sort of sits where it's meant to be. It's impressive. I think in my opinion, I think it has a nicer smell than an Ardbeg 10. I really like the smell of a Lafroig 10. But I think this is more pleasant than both of them, actually. It's really enjoyable. Yeah, half of it for me, I enjoy just the nosing of the whiskey is nice before even trying the whiskey. All right, so let's give this a taste and get an idea on the palate. Strong, very powerful. The first sip, the ABV really packs a punch. You feel that the robust ethanol hit in the whiskey itself. There's a real nice mouthfeel. It's very smooth in the sense of an oiliness, right? You can taste the maltiness and the peat, but nothing is sort of standing out as more of a forward flavor to me. It's very much reflective of the nose. That the palate is very nice too, and there's almost like a maltiness. I'm getting the saltiness again, almost like a lot of nice malt flavor. The peat is really nice in that there's smokiness and not as forward a mossiness like I've had on some of the other Islay whiskies, where you really get this pronounced the vegetative, that mossy, the moldy kind of notes in it. This not so much. And there's a nice underlying sweet smell. I'm new to this, so I'm still picking up on the elements and learning as I go. But I wouldn't say like a toffee, but almost like a light honey that's in there as well, which is I think a different point from the Lafroigs and Ardbegs that I've had. Let's have another sip. Very, very impressed. Beautiful whiskey at this point. I think it's lovely. Let's try a second sip. Really, really well placed. All the flavors, much softer on the second sip in. The ABV doesn't hit as strong. A nice aftertaste, very long. It seems to coat the tongue well and sort of just sits. Get a good sense of the flavors filling your palate and your nose. Really stays with you, like a nice aftertaste. A really, really good balance. It's very much the three key things that I pick up on is the maltiness, the peat smoke, and then a gentle sweetness that just sort of ties the two together and sits them beautifully. Really impressed, actually. I'm a big fan. This is a lovely whiskey. In Australia, where I'm based, you can typically pick up this whiskey for maybe just shy of $100, between 100 and 120. It's a little bit expensive in Australia compared to other places for whiskeys. It's what we've got here. Yeah, very, very nice whiskey. Definitely in that price range. I think like if you can get this whiskey sort of sub $100, it's a fantastic buy. I wouldn't even hesitate. Especially if it's almost, I get like almost like a banana smell at the end of this. The sweetness has that almost like the tropical fruits, like yeah, those sugary, that natural sort of creaminess of a banana, if you will. So yeah, it's a very lovely whiskey, beautifully well done. Let's try now. I want to add a little bit of water to this to just open it up a little and see how it responds. Just a touch. See a nice sort of cloudiness. I'm not sure if you can pick it up, but that very much leads me to believe it hasn't been chill filtered, because it got that nice cloudiness you can see in the whiskey when the water is added. So I'll give this a second to open up and see if the little add of water changes the flavor and the nose and the palate, if you will. Smell is very similar, the nose is similar. It loses a little bit of the punch, if you will, and it's to be expected. Obviously, the nice part with the Port Charlotte 10 heavily peated is even at 50% ABV, you're not overwhelmed by that alcohol, the content of the alcohol, that sort of heavy ethanol. It's not really like taking away from the other scents within the whiskey. It loses a little bit of the character on the nose when I add the water in. I much prefer the nose of this whiskey prior to adding the water. It hasn't developed the nose in I don't pick up any additional smells more so it's just softened the original smell that I had prior to adding the water. Let's give it a taste. Very pleasant. It smooth as expected the punch from the alcohol, but again, adding the water doesn't really enhance or open up. Maybe if I let it sit a little longer, it might do so. But at this sort of point, it loses a little bit of the richness, the oiliness that I enjoyed prior to the water. So I would suggest, depending on whether you're, if the 50% is a bit too much for you, most certainly add water. It won't take away from what this whiskey is. It just subdues the nose and the palate a touch, but the flavors are still there. Very much, for my personal opinion, I would not add water to this. I would drink it at the 50%. The key thing that stands out to me is truly just how beautifully positioned everything is in this whiskey. So I don't see it as intensely complex. There's lots of different elements that are hard to identify. It's really just a beautiful pairing of the balance with that malt, the peatiness, that smoky, the sea thyme, that maritime, that saltiness, ocean scents and flavors, and that underlying sweetness, as I mentioned, just that almost like a ripe banana, a slight, almost like a tropical fruit, as I say. It does lose a touch of that with the water. It just softens it down. But absolutely lovely. I recommend it. It's a great whiskey. Thank you guys for watching and enjoying the very first virgin tasting whiskey video that I'm putting out. And I look forward to making more of these with you guys. So please like the content, subscribe to the channel, and let me know if there's a particular whiskey that you don't see on the shelf that you'd like me to try. I'm excited about this journey and learning and trying all different whiskeys in different regions. So send me some recommendations, things that you're curious about and you'd like someone to try them and get some feedback and thoughts on them before you do. More than happy to do so. Thanks again, guys, and catch you next time on McIntyre's Malts.